guys, and welcome to another kit review. Hope you're all fit and well and the world hasn't dragged you down too much lately. Okay, so today we're having a look at a kit from Academy. It is in 1/35 scale and it is their M4A3 Sherman with the T34 Calliope rocket launchers. Okay, so this kit came out in 2015 and it is, as you can see, basic M4A3 Sherman with accessories on the top. Alright, so it is a big box. Box art is, not too bad. Does show the accurately enough coloured out white star, which the Germans found a perfect naming point, and even shows the wiring which you can copy for connecting the tubes to the tank. So let's have a look at the box first. So what we have on the side is, okay, sorry, that's a 4-view drawing of the actual vehicle with the rocket tubes attached. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. Shows you the markings. On the other side we have got usual warnings, 14 years and up, warnings etc. in 10 different languages, not included paint, glue, etc. Gives you the skill level on this one. Skill level is 4. Okay, so assuming that 5 is red and therefore you need to be really skilled. Alright, so skill level 4, and even gives you the colours. Okay, so it just lists 6 colours, and you've got Humbrol, GSI, Life Colour, Testers, Model Master, Revell, Vallejo. So that's pretty good. That covers just about everyone except, of course, Tamiya, which like to stick to their own colours anyway. Alright, so that's the box. So these tanks themselves were actually, these setups were only produced in a limited number, and they were originally intended to be used on G-Day, but proved too top heavy with all that up there, too unstable for bringing on a landing craft, etc. So that got knocked on the head. Then they were going to use them in the Ardennes, but of course the German invasion of the Ardennes, that knocked that out of kilt. And then every time they tried to use them there were problems, so they were only used in limited actions in late months of the war in 1945 for various units. Effective? Maybe not, it's hard to tell. They weren't used in any kind of quantity where you could actually tell that were effective. One of the problems they did find with these tanks, when they originally connected them, the rocket tubes to the gun, the crews couldn't use the gun anymore. So the crews modified the gun and the fitting in the field so that they could still use the gun and fire the rockets. Because as you can tell, if you've got this pointed up and you get attacked, you're screwed basically. So yeah, that was kind of a design flaw. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's have a look in the box. Instructions. Interesting. Oh, I see. So first instructions are for the tank, second instructions are for the rocket tubes. So we'll put those aside. This looks like, yes, your usual warnings about keep away from children under 3, don't stick your fingers together, that kind of thing. Okay, this tells you how to cut the decals and how to apply them, what tools you need, and check with the parts list before unsealing. That's kind of hard to go through those sprues and check the parts list first. Anyway, that's your warnings out of the way. Let's have a look. What have we got? One bag, hull bottom, hull top. Looks like fittings for the hull, yes. And on this side, yes indeedy. You've got the hatch and your drive sprockets, etc. Front of the hull. So that's in that one particular bag. In the next one, we've got the Sherman's turret, mount, gun barrel, and accessories like 50 caliber, 30 caliber machine guns, etc. Right. So then we've got, not in the bag, any bag whatsoever, these are the rocket tubes. Okay. So technically speaking, if you wanted to, you could just build this as an M4A3 and forget about the rocket tubes. Your choice, but seeing as you bought the kit for, well, I bought the kit anyway, you didn't buy it, for what it is, it'll have the rocket tubes. Okay, so one bag with, okay, so as you can tell by the decals, you've got blanked out, painted out ones, and also white ones, and there's a little tiny bit of photo etch as well. So we'll have a look at that in a second. Next sprue out is your running gear and wheels, bogies. Okay, more drive sprockets, which is interesting. So we'll have to look, obviously there are parts that you don't use, and a piece of string for your towing cable. So they're over there. Rubber tracks. Okay. There are no individual links in this, just rubber tracks. So if you want to get aftermarket for an M4A3 Academy, replace these tracks with something a little bit more detailed. Next bag is more running gear, okay, and hooks, handles, fuel drums, etc. accessories for the tank, spare track, okay. And then last bag is again another hatch. So I am assuming there are parts here which will not be used, okay, because I've got a couple of hatches for the turret, and more accessories for like machine guns and hooks and things like that. So we shall see, Okay, so that's the sprues, that's the box. Right, alright, bear with me and we will have a look at the decals and instructions in a second. Okay, so let's have a look at the instructions. We'll just put those there for now. Alright, so fairly straightforward. How to apply photo etch. These are your color callouts again. Okay, same again, pump roll, testers, Revell, etc. Okay, so there is no history of the vehicle on these instructions, so that's if you want to know. And I think if you're building a model, you really should know the history of the vehicle, aircraft, ship, whatever. Even if it's a figure kit, it's part of what we do, learning about history. Okay, so usual warnings, and it starts off with the wheels, of course. Drive sprockets, idlers, bogies, and then carries on to the lower hull fittings, back of the hull, the bogies on the hull, okay, and then same on both sides, and then we move on to the upper hull. So you got the front and that's your joining plate. Whole machine gun goes on, engine deck with grills, and then you've got your drivers and machine gunner hatches that go on. So they seem to be fairly detailed. They even have periscopes, which is good, but it means you can leave them open if you want to. And then, although I don't think there is much of an interior, so that's debatable. I guess if you had a couple of figures sitting there, you wouldn't see inside anyway. So then we get to headlights and the brackets that protect the headlights, etc. Some hook points. Tools go on. Okay. Yes, there are color call outs throughout. Tells you what color to paint the tools, etc. as you go. Alright, back of the tank again. Main gun. And then we get to the turret. 30 cal machine gun. And it's telling you here you need to cut or you need to fold that, etc. for the rockets. Main hatch, commander's hatch, okay, and the ring on the turret. It also has periscopes that go in from underneath. Alright, so some models, Tamiya, etc., don't have anything in the periscopes, so it's just a straight hole. This is nice in that it actually puts in some periscopes that you can paint up, and at least there's something there. And then you come to finish off the turret with all the fittings, okay, springs, attachment points, and then we get to 14, which is the actual rocket tubes. So that is interesting because, putting that aside, we do have this, which maybe they threw in later, and actually I think they did, because this doesn't have a sprue layout. And there you have it. So there's a big list of unused parts. So obviously this is a amended instruction to go with the first one. This one includes your rocket tubes, okay, your photo etch, but yes, there is, I couldn't even count them, a lot of unused parts in this kit. So that'll be something you'll have to be aware of when you're making it. So yeah, see, maybe if you want to count them, but yeah, you'd have to be very careful going through this kit because there's a lot and they're on every sprue. Alright, so what's on the other side is the actual construction. So first instruction is just basically telling you to put the tubes together, and then we move on to PE parts and the rocket tubes themselves and the rocket frame, connection points, and how to connect it to the actual turret. So it is quite detailed. That's your 50 caliber, okay, that has got an easy dozen parts to 150 caliber, so that is interesting. Not sure where you'd fit it because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have a 50 caliber and the rocket tubes at the same time. I'm pretty sure they'd get in the way. So anyway, that's me rambling. Right, so then we go on to pretty simple, fit the turret. It shows the 50 caliber at the back, but if you had a 50 caliber on with the rocket tubes, it wouldn't work. Alright, as you can see with the colors, you've got, top one is France March 45, Germany early 45, and then the bottom one is January 45. This one has the 50 cal, so it is just basically an M4A3, and these are your two Sherman's fitted with the rocket tubes. And on the back, like I said, this is your parts list. So that's something that needs to be studied because there's a lot of parts that aren't used. Okay, so that's the instructions. Let's have a look at the decals. Okay, so here's the decals. Fairly basic. Okay, not much in the way of unit markings, etc. that you might find on a US tank, but enough to get by with. You may want to have a look at some aftermarket add-on signs just to give it a bit more feel. So that's your decals. And see if I can get that up to you. I'll give you stills of this anyway. So this is your photo etch. Okay, so the photo etch is mainly to do with the Calliope rocket tubes. Okay, just the fittings and brackets for that. Okay, so if you're just going to model a standard M4A3, you wouldn't use these. And I think that is basically it. Oh, piece of string. Yeah, no, they always put in a piece of string so that you can make a cable out of that. So I just thought I'd show you, you do get a piece of string. Okay, in a second we'll have a look at the sprues themselves. Okay, so let's have a look at the sprues. I think we'll start with the lower hull. Okay, so no interior, some fairly basic bolt detail, some bolt detail on the bottom, but not a great deal. So detail on the actual lower hull is probably, well, you won't see it anyway with the bogies in a way, so I'd say passable. Okay, so that's acceptable to a point. Right, so let's have a look at the upper hull. Okay, so upper hull, again, most of the detail that you can see are actually the fitting points for the tools, etc. Cast detail, there is, I don't know if you can see it in here, probably about there. So as you can see, there is cast detail between the hull top and the hull sides. It's quite fine, so not too bad, but yes, as you can tell, where you actually put the lights, the fittings, the tools, etc., okay, the attachment points are quite heavy. So if you're going to leave something off, okay, you would definitely have to file those down. As you can tell, I'll turn that around so you can get a better look. It does actually have, okay, there, it looks like, well, it looks like a copyright, but it's not. Okay, that's basically your hull, your hull stamped. All right, just because it looks like a C, come into focus, beastie. Just because it looks like a C, I don't think it's a copyright. Okay, and then you've just got your mud guards. Okay, engine deck with some nice rivet, bolt detail. Okay, there's your barrel mount, engine grills. Okay, back of the tank again, bolt detail. So it's not too bad. There's a lot of detail on here. I mean, it's not yeehaw with bolts and rivets all over the place, but never actually having seen a real Sherman up close, I couldn't tell you whether it's accurate or not anyway. But I think it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's acceptable. So I like that. Okay, so we might as well have a look at Alright, turret. Cast turret. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but it does have a nice texture to it. Really nice texture. Yeah, that is definitely a cast turret texture. And you got your gun mounts, gun barrel, end of the gun barrel, and towing hooks, etc. Hatches, details okay, not bad. Hatches even have interior detail, which I like, which is good. So yep, so far looking good, and not much flash and not much cleanup. Right, so let's have a look next. Okay, so here we've got front of the hull. Okay, so these are your drive sprockets, hatches. Okay, another turret hatch. So like I said, there's a lot of parts in here which you won't be using, depending on I guess which model Sherman you're going to be doing. Alright, so let's have a look here. Again, really nice cast detail on the front. Really, it does look like it's cast. I don't know if it's great detail, but yeah, I'll give you a close-up of that anyway, so you can have a good look. Nice bolts. This is an interesting part here. It'll take a bit to get that off without breaking it. Some very fine parts in here, but overall, nice bolt detail. Hatches I love. Okay, hooks and things. Attachment points are quite heavy, especially for the smaller ones. So a bit of care, I think it would definitely be a bit of care taking these ones off. Alright, so, but as like I always say, just take your time, bit of patience, and there's no reason why you can't get these off in one piece. Okay, so that's that. Let's have a look see here. Right, one loose wheel. You have got two sprues exactly the same, so we'll put one of those aside, put that loose wheel aside. There we have it. So there's your bogey wheels. Right, suspensions, another sprockets, so idler, thrive sprocket. Like I said, you obviously have alternatives for the drive sprocket depending on what model Sherman this is. So read the instructions. Detail, not too bad. Each one of these, and I'll try and show you, each one of these has a casting mark on it. Okay, so I'll give you close-ups of that, but yes, each one has the casting mark, which is the serial number, etc. So that's a really nice detail. Okay, very accurate. So yeah, I'm actually impressed with this tank. A lot of them don't have the casting numbers, etc. So, whoop, sorry, I just dropped a bit. Not sure what that is. It does actually look like part of the 50 caliber. and that just came out loose from one of the sprues. But next one is this one. That's a 50 caliber, towing hooks, okay, spades, accessories like tools, crank handle, bags, etc. So you can dress this up, this Sherman, in any way you want. So there's scope there for making it very well lived in. So let's put that aside where I don't lose it. Next two sprues. So we've got two here. So what we've got is Etch. Okay. These are the Periscopes. So, like I said, lot of model manufacturers don't include Periscopes in their kits. Academy obviously has. You'll just have to paint those up so they resemble glass. The easiest way is, rather than use silver, which wouldn't be, use a medium to dark grey and maybe a little bit of spotting of light grey just to replicate a reflection, and maybe some, if you want, a little bit of gloss clear to give it that glass look. And the other one is, again, accessories, fittings, etc. Just some random bits for the outside of the tank and the turret. Okay, so that's that. And we have got this one. Alright, so okay, go more suspension bogey bits. So I'm assuming that some of these will not be used. I would say there are alternatives, okay, but not that it matters whether you use them or not. The detail on these is really good. Again, some really nice, and I'll give you close-ups of these as well, casting forge marks and bolt marks on these. So the detail on this is really, really good. And I think this is the last sprue. So here we have an accessory sprue. Alright, jerry cans, spare tracks, more handles, grab handles, water bottles, etc., spare wheels. Okay, so this one, you can use some of it, but probably not all of it, because, naturally enough, this is a standard Sherman tank, and it's been upgraded with the rockets. Okay, so what have we missed? The important thing. The rockets. Okay, so as you can tell, this tank carried 60 of these. They fired a 4.5-inch rocket, which would have made an awful lot of noise, and fairly simple construction. Detail is, well, it's a rocket tube. Detail on the back of the tubes, there's your firing connectors. Front of the tubes, it looks like each tube is loaded. So if you wanted empty tubes, there's a bit of work in that. You literally have to drill this out to give you an empty tube, and also the back, which would be a problem, I think. Very difficult thing to do. So, detail though, wiring on here, really nice. And that's the only thing that you're going to have to look at with this tank. To make it accurate is the wiring. Now, there's your wiring. It's not specified in the instructions how you wire this up, but if you want it to look accurate, you would definitely have to do it. So I've seen a couple of references to the wiring on these. I believe initially they went through a box on the side of the turret, and then they started to put it through the commander's hatch. So depending on how you want it model is, internet references, I think definitely you need to invest in, well, what I would use is some fuse wire, which should be readily available at your hardware store, and then internet references as to wire this up. They were wired in banks, not individually, which means that you know, you can cut down the amount of wire. So yeah, that's one thing it's not specified in here, and which you'll have to look up yourself. Apart from that, it's not a bad kit. I love the fact that the hull and the suspension, bogies, etc. have cast marks and numbers. Right, this is nice cast detail on the front of the hull and on the turret. So yeah, this is not a bad model at all. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. I wouldn't have bought it. Silly thing to say. Sorry, rambling. Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of this one. As usual, I hope you've got something from it rather than my ramblings. And until next time, take it easy. I'll see ya.